because I wasn't diagnosed till I was an adult. And I think I spent a lot of my time, or a lot of my life, very confused about myself. And I think I dealt with a lot of like really negative emotions around that. And like, I think when I found out that I had ADHD, one of the first things that happened to me after that was that I started to accept myself better and working out how to live my brain. And it like breaks my heart that I know that there are so many people who are the same as me but don't know yet that they have ADHD, and they feel the same way as I did about themselves. And so I want to make sure that as a community, as a society, we are reaching those people and people who think they might have ADHD, and helping them to learn about themselves and to realize that they're not bad people or stupid or slow or inconsiderate. They're just, their brain works differently. This is my journey to getting diagnosed started when I was 21, and I was at university. I think I was doing research for some sort of essay, and I found a journal article saying that young girls were not getting diagnosed because their symptoms looked more like daydreaming. And straight away I was like, nothing had ever described my life more than that like one sentence that I'd read, because I was an extreme, like even as a child I knew that it was a problem. So I was like, I think I have ADHD. And then I decided I should probably pursue it then, like a diagnosis then. But I spoke to a professional that I knew she was she helped children at school who had learning difficulties, any kind of learning difficulties. And she was like, oh, don't be silly, you'd be bouncing off the walls if you had ADHD. And I was like, well, that's not what I read in a journal article. So I believe that a little bit more than this woman. But she was a very nice woman and she cared a lot about the job. And I think I realised that I didn't really have it in me to have the same argument with everyone else every step of the way. So I gave up there. And then I went into my 20s and even got to my 30s. And I thought, I don't know, I knew that I had it, and I was like signed up to certain email lists and things, but I still hadn't looked into it. And then I found out about the symptom executive dysfunction. And again, like for the second time since learning about the daydreaming problem, I was like, this describes everything about me. And it kind of spiraled from there. So I did a lot of research. I was totally absorbed by anything ADHD and learned as much as I could about it. And just every new symptom I found, I was like learning more about myself. And I have a job that is at odds, I would say, with my ADHD brain. And a lot of my issues had come from self-hatred, I suppose, because all of these things were very difficult. I have to be very organized. I have to be always on time. I have to have a great memory and great attention to detail, and these are all things that my brain just does not do. And I had just had so many situations where I was like, I can't do anything, I'm a terrible person, like I hate myself, but I enjoy my career and it wasn't something that I wanted to leave. So learning that I could potentially get a diagnosis and get treatment for it that would help me at work spurred me on to like get help as soon as possible. I struggled at my doctor, at my GP though. She had asked about Psychiatry UK and the right to choose, and she now I understand that she didn't know what I was talking about. So she was very firmly like, no, it's too far away, you can't access treatment that way, you just have to go on a 5-year waiting list. So I said, okay, put me on the list. But it was so important to me. I was at a place in my life where I needed help then. So I saved, and obviously I was lucky enough that I could, in a position where I could save the money to go private. So I just went private. And I'm still waiting for an NHS psychiatrist. Like just yesterday, I had to stop taking my medication because I realised it was affecting me badly. But I did go the route of the private. What am I trying to say? I did go for a private assessment and treatment that way. It was very expensive though, and it took a lot longer to move to shared care than what I was made aware of, or than what I think anyone thinks they will if they do go down that route. But eventually it happened. I'm now in shared care. I still struggle because my doctor doesn't know a lot about it, and neither does I now have a CBT therapist in Liverpool. I don't know about other places in the country, but our CBT NHS treatment doesn't cover ADHD, so the therapists, by the sounds of it, don't know much about it or how it can help, even though it's a recommended treatment for ADHD. So I struggle a lot still trying to help them understand how they can help me, if that makes sense. I have in sort of two different ways as well. I think a few years ago I was dealing with grief and with some other mental health issues, and I did then, and I got help for it. As soon as I realised that I was struggling in that way, I went to get help, and my doctor gave me antidepressants. It was very helpful. I didn't manage to get any further therapy or anything from there, though I tried, but I just struggled with NHS struggles and the lack of mental health help that they have available. And then I started to feel a little bit better, and I didn't have depression or anxiety anymore, and I was also grieving at the time. I didn't get over the grief, I got through the grief. But then a few years later, and this is leading up to me deciding to get the diagnosis for ADHD, I was just in a place where I was constantly having these burnouts, which I now know to be ADHD burnouts, but at the time I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was me just constantly failing. And I have these periods where I'm doing great and I'm really proud of myself and I'm learning and I'm great. And then with ADHD, you just get overwhelmed and you just burn out and you're really tired. And I just got to a point where I was like, it's been happening my whole adult life. And realistically, I have to accept that it's going to happen for the rest of my adult life. And I don't want to do that. I just didn't want to. I was too tired. And I didn't have the energy for it. And I thought, I have got a really great life and I'm happy. I think I'm a happy person in general. And that doesn't change really, but I'm too tired. Sometimes I'm just too tired. And I think that's one of the things that drives me to advocate for it as well, because there are things that we can make easier for people with ADHD. And I think there are expectations of all of us to perform in a certain way that I don't think anyone, even people without ADHD, can meet those expectations a lot of the time. But I think if you have gone your whole life without a diagnosis and without knowing what makes you the way that you are, you survive really by internalizing all of these feelings, and it just looks like self-hatred and you don't even know it. I never thought, before I was in a place where I could analyze my past opinions on myself, I wouldn't have said that it was self-hatred. But when I look back now that I know, I didn't have any patience for myself. I was always angry with myself. Nothing was ever good enough, and I wouldn't have seen that as perfectionism either at the time, because I just saw myself as trying to be a proper person. I was never a proper person. And so it's not that I'd tried to and I've tried to end my life, but there have been times where I've just been so low and tired that I just wanted to die because it's easier, because it's too hard to live in a world where you don't operate the same way as everyone else. It's important to not judge a person's motives on their actions. A lot of things that people with ADHD do make it look like they don't care, or they're just not bothered about things, or they're not smart enough to know something. And it's not, it's because we have a different set of priorities. So whereas it might look like we don't care about something, but what's actually happened is that we care so much about something slightly different that we've forgotten everything that we knew before and everything that we were supposed to do. And yeah, that's it. If you have a mad dash at the end of the day where there's a deadline and there's not enough people and there's things you don't know or can't do, that's when I can help. If you need a problem solving, that's when I can help. If you need research doing, if there are things in which there are ways in which my brain works that it works very, very well, and I think I would like them to know the ways in which they can utilize that. I'd like to tell I I was a daydreamer at school. And I didn't get into a lot of trouble. I was talkative and I got moved around a lot because I would get anyone talking who was near me. But my teachers liked me. Like, I remember when I think I was in like year 2 or year 1, my teacher told my mum I was like a light in the corner of a dark room. And at the time, my mum told me, and I was like, that must mean I'm like a well-behaved child. And then as I got older, as I realised that it was ADHD, or that I had ADHD, I realised that what was happening was that I was not saying anything and never causing any troubles. I didn't do badly at school. I did okay at school. So I wasn't a worry at all to anyone, but it did mean that I went my whole life with a disability that I didn't know about. And I think what I would like them to know is the different ways in which the symptoms can present, so that they can see them sort of in the children that have them. Because I do think schools probably, and the earlier on people are diagnosed, the better their prospects in life, because they then are given the tools that they need to work with the brain instead of against it. So yeah, I think it would be what the symptoms are, but also how the symptoms can present. I think about my university experience, and I tried to do way too much and produced way too little with the amount of things that I set out to do. And I think part of that is that I arrived in a whole new structure that I didn't understand. And maybe they had more things in place for people like me, just more learning opportunities, or places where I could simply just understand the structure within the structure that I was working within. I might have been able to structure myself and my work a little bit better to deal with that. Whereas my memories of it are just, and I don't think I ever knew what was going on. I was constantly just like, what do you need? Okay, here, I'll do that today. I'll do that overnight. And I think they put in a decent effort, but I think with ADHD, there are just some extra little things that could be done to help with that. My GP and even my CBT therapist both view stress as an umbrella term for anxiety and depression, but I think there are a lot more ways in which our mental health can go wrong than just seeing it as depression or anxiety. Like, loneliness is a huge problem. It's a problem within ADHD particularly. I was reading something some statistics on that the other day, but it's a problem for everyone, and loneliness isn't anxiety and it isn't depression. And stress, when you speak to people and they tell you they're stressed, they never say I'm stressed because I'm depressed or anxious. It might include a level of anxiety, but more often than not, it's overwhelm, it's tiredness. And then you have that problem where we're not just tired, but our immune system's now so low because we're so unhealthy, because we're unable to like keep up with all of the other things that we're supposed to do because of the stress, that we're going back to the NHS and taking more money from it because we've got to cure all of these other things, because we simply cannot recognize overwhelm as a mental health problem. And I think with ADHD, we're far more susceptible to overwhelm and burnout. That when we go to the doctors and they're giving us antidepressants or propranolol, it's just worsening the problem because we think we're going to get better and we're not. We're just messing about with serotonin, as well as the fact that we've got no dopamine. Do you know what I mean? So I think I would like the NHS to accept that there's more to treat at a base level than just depression and anxiety. I'm probably always going to forget the birthday cards. I'm never going to buy them a birthday card. And I'm always going to take days to reply. And I'm probably never going to reach out if they do first. But it doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about them all the time. And I think most of it, when I told them that I found out I had ADHD, and I was like, this is why I'm so bad at all these things. I'm lucky that all my friends are like that. Well, that's not why I'm friends with you. I'm friends with you because of all of the other things about you. So I'm lucky in that sense. But any new friends, I'm always there for them. I'm always thinking about them, and they can ask me for anything that they need. But I'm not texting them. I'm not going to remember to. That I'm not as argumentative as they think I am. I think I can be quite impassioned in my beliefs, but I'm also very open-minded, and I just like a debate. And I think it's an ADHD thing where we're not necessarily pushing to be right or wrong. We just want to learn everything we can about something that we're interested in. And then the second part to that is that the way that I structure sentences, I know that doesn't always make sense, and I sometimes have to go back. And I don't have a problem doing that because I know that I just don't. People don't always understand you. And I think that my family also, I think there's a lot of ADHD in my family, but I'm the only person who's admitted it and got a diagnosis. And everyone else is like, no, you're different to us. It's just you. We're all fine. But I only realized this recently, but I get into a lot of arguments with my family when I'm trying to work out what it is that they're trying to say to me, and they get really mad about it because they think that I'm arguing with what they're saying. I think that they think that I'm being a bit arrogant in my approach and being like, can you explain this more? This doesn't make any sense. And it's not. I simply have no idea what they're trying to say to me, and I'll often be like, please, like there'll be rows, everyone's shouting at each other because everyone has ADHD and RSD, and they see it as a slight on their person. But a lot of the time I've just got no idea what anyone's saying to me. So that's what I wanted to know. I support them and I love whatever their opinion is. I just need them to help me understand. I would keep my ADHD. I might remove the executive dysfunction. That really gets me. I don't think I would get rid of anything else. Maybe I think I do suffer from rejection sensitive dysphoria, but saying that, this year I've worked out some tools to help me with that I think have helped me to be happier than I've ever been. But I also think they would be good for anyone to have, and made me happy because I'm just much more accepting of everyone else's behavior. Not just accepting, but like understanding that most things that people do have nothing to do with me, and so I don't need to feel rejected by it. So I don't know if I would even get rid of that, because I don't think it would have led me here. I think it saved me a lot of trauma in the past, but not now. I think in general, I wouldn't like. I enjoy my own company, and I can spend time alone because I like the inside of my head. Like, it's nice in there. It's not there aren't bad thoughts. I'm very interested in lots of things. I think like I spend a lot of time just pondering stuff, and like now I can say it's because I'm like, my mind's wandering like to all kinds of insane places. Whereas I suppose when I was younger, it just looked like I was zoned out and being scatty. But I think if I didn't have this kind of brain, what would I have? Would I just have what would I be? Would I not be thinking about anything? Like, what's a different kind of brain, and is it nice in there? Like, are they interested in the same way that I am? Can someone spend their time inside their own mind in the same way that I can? And I don't know if that's true. It might be, but I wouldn't want to risk losing it. So I wouldn't want to change anything else. I don't know if it's so much a strategy. I don't know if I can call it a strategy, but it goes back to what I was just saying about learning to live with RSD, and I think that everyone could deal with it. But I realised that the rejection sensitivity is coming from an assumption that I'm literally just being rejected, that everything that happens is because someone specifically hates me and I'm a bad person. And I learned a lot. I love yoga. I do a lot of yoga, and I did yoga teacher training in India, and I learned a lot from my philosophy teachers on that course about our ego and how we've all got an ego, and we can't get rid of it completely because we need it, but we should constantly be addressing it and trying to deal with it. And I think this year I just thought it was like as a resolution that I wanted to like kill my ego, which was egotistical at the time. I know that now. I can't get rid of it. But understanding that when things go terribly wrong, it's not because I didn't do good enough. That is like that voice is an ego voice, and this person's mad at me because I'm not good enough, or I'm not a good person, or I didn't do this right, and that's why everyone hates me. Addressing like all of these egotistical thoughts that are basically all stem from this thought that you should be better, and the reason that you have that is so that you don't fail. It's a survival mechanism, but it is also the root of all of our negative, or most of our negative thought patterns. And so just addressing that, and wherever I can, wherever I felt like that was happening, has helped me just be really happy and content. And I've had a year of it, like because my job this year has been a bit mad, so I think I've come up against a lot of situations where I have had to address that. So it's been a bit of a mad one. But I'm so happy that I did it. Like, I feel content. Like, I feel like anything could happen right now, and it wouldn't affect how. It might affect a little bit how I feel about myself, but it wouldn't last very long, and it wouldn't change how I see myself as a whole. And that's not, I don't know if you can call that strategy, but it's been the most important attempt at working with my brain that I've made since understanding more about my brain, if that makes sense. So I think with people with ADHD can have a processing delay, which I heard is because, or I read that it's because a normal brain, or not a normal brain, a neurotypical brain will process what's relevant, whereas ADHD brain will just try and process everything. And I think sometimes that can be a benefit to us, because it's just better. Like, we're able to make decisions faster, we're able to problem solve quicker, see potential problems faster. But I think if and now I understand how this works. So if I'm particularly stressed, if I've got a lot on my mind, then I have a processing delay, and I'll struggle to notice things as they arise for a lot longer than a neurotypical brain would. And the first time that this became a problem was about 8 years ago, and I didn't know that much about ADHD yet. At this time, I still thought that I was just a intense daydreamer, and that was my only issue. But I was quite stressed. I think I'd had a stressful day at work. I'd just broken up with my boyfriend, who I lived with. I was clearly must have had a lot on my mind this day, and I knew that I did. And it was night time, and I was walking up a really long road in Manchester, in the centre of Manchester, and I could see at the end of this road there was a man on top of a building, and I could see him for ages, but just I didn't process it. There was no analysis that went into my accepting that there was a man on a roof. There was just a man there, and I know that that's not normal for me. Like, I would worry about something like that, but I watched him for so long. It feels like it was like 5 minutes, but it was probably maybe more like 2 or 3 minutes before I realized that there was a man on a roof at night for no reason, and he was in danger. And as soon as I realized, I ran, but it just and help came, but just not in time, and he jumped, and there was probably like a 2 to 3 minute space in between him jumping and between help arriving and him jumping. If I hadn't had this delay, help probably would have arrived on time and he wouldn't have jumped. That obviously affected him and his life more. But I suppose the reason I wanted to also use this example is because I spent a lot of time just not understanding what had happened on my part, and I accepted it as like, I made a mistake, I dropped the ball, and as long as I never do it again, it will never be a problem again. And then my nan, I was caring for my nan, and she was sick, and there were just a couple of times where she wasn't hurt in any way, she was just slightly more uncomfortable because I didn't notice quicker. And I went through, like, there was just years where I was like, I'm just not observant. Like, all of my problems stem from like the fact that I'm constantly in panic mode because I'm not observant enough, and I don't care enough about what's happening to act quicker or to notice quicker. And I told my doctor, I went to CBT, and they fired me on my first day because she said, oh, you've got PTSD, I can't help you because it's not anxiety or depression. And I just didn't, and whenever I spoke to anyone, no one ever had anything to say about it, and I didn't understand it, and I was so confused and lost. And obviously this man could have lived if this hadn't been a problem. So that's the worst thing. But the reason I'm using this example isn't because it's the worst thing that happened to me, but because I do want people to understand that it's a thing that can happen to them, and it's not their fault. And that's it. Literally just self-acceptance. I hated myself before. Like, there were so many times where I just was so tired of myself, and I tried everything. I literally tried everything. I've got every book that makes you be more focused or helps you be more organized. In the end, I bought crystals. I've got a crystal for every ADHD symptom that I have because I was desperate. And now I've saved energy and money by not buying all of these things that might help me. But I just accept myself, and even when things are hard or if I'm burnt out, I'm simply just burnt out. I'm simply just too tired. My brain's not functioning because it has ADHD, but I'm not in any sort of emotional turmoil. And it's been so nice and just refreshing to just not be constantly attempting to be a better person. I know that I try my best and I care about people, and that's all I can give. And that's enough, I think. So that is my answer.